So what we want to get into today is talking about change, but more importantly, how we react, how we respond, and how we take change on when it happens. I really brought this up right now because we just had the election and there's a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions running high and low, and there's a lot of divisiveness happening within the country. And from that, I think there's actually more opportunity than there is harm that's out there. But it's all about how you see that change, how you respond to that change, and then what you do with those opportunities. Should you have your blinders off, your mind free and clear, and get focused on the potential that's out there. Chris, Sean, welcome. We always hear, embrace change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's, one of the cliches that's out there. But embracing and accepting, and I mean truly accepting change in the circumstance is really what we want to focus in today. So when I say embrace change versus accept change, in your mind, what are the differences? What should we be seeing or doing or feeling when you hear that?
Well, obviously, it lies in the two words, accept and embrace. So I think the easier of the two is to accept change. The more difficult one is to embrace the change. Because what happens when you're talking about embracing a change, in most, I think, I guess, in most human beings' minds, that means I have to accept something that I didn't, on the outset, agree with or desire or was looking for. And I think that's at the root cause of it all to begin with, because I think people as a whole, we're so used to just, really being motivated by what we want. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that motivation blinds us to what we need sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think that if people spend more time looking at want versus need, and how whatever this particular change that comes, that we find ourselves in the midst of, what its ultimate outcome could be, we always look at it from a negative perspective. The human mind is conditioned to immediately go to the negative. We've talked about this before. I truly believe that when I look at people. I was talking to a friend of mine about this last night, and I said, I have this, and I've said this a million times, and I'm not saying I'm clairvoyant or anything like that, because I am not. But what I'm saying is I have this ability to see things. You know what I mean? I have this ability to see things in certain instances, how they are going to potentially play out before they have played out. It's my gift and my curse. And I'm not saying I'm right 100% of the time. I'm not even saying I'm right better than 50% of the time, but I am right a fair amount of time, especially in the ones where it's really needed. You know what I mean? It's one thing that, it's a baseball game or a football game or a basketball game, the outcome of that, something like that. I want my team to win always. I mean, if I had my druthers, my team goes 82-0. That's what I want. The reality is it's kind of goes back to what you were saying a little bit, Sean, about the manifestation point. I always think about, when I wake up every day, what is my desired outcome? What am I trying to accomplish on a day-to-day basis based on the things that I'm involved in, and I am expected to create a desired outcome. I'm a part of something. We talked about it a long time ago, where I said, and I made a decision to come back to work, kind of come into corporate America, because I've been working on my own for the last, 10, 20 years, better than 10 years, let's call it that. That I knew that there were going to be some expectations placed on me. There were going to be some days when I was not in charge. I was not the ultimate decision maker, and that I was going to have to be a part of something. I think people lose their way when it comes to that type of mentalities, like my job, whatever. They just think that they have no ability to affect outcomes, and I think that robs people of their passions to succeed. It robs them of their passions to continue their dreams. It robs them of their passions to really feel like they are in the mix and are a part of the decision-making tree.
Yeah. Understood, 100%. So, Sean, I'm going to bring that question to you. Embracing and, as I said, accepting, I think, are two different things. What's your perspective on that?
Well, I would totally agree. I agree. They're often used synonymously, but I think they're definitely going in two different directions. Accepting, like Chris said, you're taking on something that you really don't want to. You're the last man picked on the baseball team. You come on over here. I know you can't play, but we need a fifth person, so you get to run. But when you look at embrace, um, think about the action that the word embrace implies. You're receiving the change, right? You're receiving it unto yourself. You're enveloping that change, so it becomes a part of you. And deep down within there is the key, which is find the love in the change so that it becomes a part of you. Because if not, then it's going to be you're still in the acceptance phase, and it's going to be abrasive. If you find the love, because we all know that everything has a silver lining, but you can take it beyond that silver lining to say, hey, this is going to be the best thing that it can be in this situation, whether it may be uncomfortable, it may be unplanned, it may have just been a kick in the pants, but hey, it got me out of the way of the bus that was coming around behind me. We don't know
Mm-hmm.
what that change is going to do, but we do have an onus to honor how it impacts us. As we were just talking, off camera about the election, and saying, hey, um, if all of us would simply say, hey, no matter what happened, this is going to be the best 4 years of my life. That's embracing that change. You can accept it, like, oh man, it didn't go my way, just like you can do at the end of the Alabama game. We didn't win. Or you can say, hey, we still have 5 more games to go. We can still be number one in our conference, and we have a clear shot to the title. You embrace it. These are your guys. These are your people, and whatever that change is, it's there for a reason. Number one, it's usually there for some time, but whatever that period is, hold on to it, make it a part of you. And if you're coming from a loving place, coming from a centered place, coming from a place of purpose and passion, it will be the best situation that it can be, no matter how dirty or muddy and grimy it could be on its onset or on its face. If you embrace it, just as if you made the decision yourself, it now becomes a part of you, and you're the one driving that change, and you are now in charge of that again. And that's the best way that I could describe to how to accept change and embrace change and make change work for you.
I absolutely agree with that. So let me take it to the next level on this, because the other thing we hear a lot is fear of change. And that's a very common term that gets tossed around when people talk about change and how it comes about. Um, but I don't know. I think that's the wrong term, because I don't think people necessarily fear it. And maybe that's, if you want to say it, if that's an emotion that maybe gets generated from being when change starts to happen. But fear is probably, just for me, I don't think the best term. What are your thoughts about that, Chris? When people say fear of change, I fear this, I fear that. Is that really the root of it, or do you feel it's something deeper that than just using that as a general catch-all for it?
You already know it's something deeper. A lot of times the fear of change that you know that all of a sudden now you're going to have to think. You may be required to do some new actions. You may uh, unfortunately have to figure out a different road mapping to whatever the desired outcome or change that has been thrust upon you. Because a lot of times I say that it's been thrust upon you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? You didn't just wake up this morning like, I'm looking for change. You know, where you at? you know, but I think immediately when, at least, and I'm just speaking for me and me alone, because I've talked about fear a lot, fear of success versus fear of failure. Um, I think a lot of times the initial feeling is oh, here we go. We're about to get a undesirable outcome. I'm so fearful of that, as opposed to saying, okay, well, this is an opportunity. People don't look at it. They don't. It's kind of like the Jim Carrey. What was that? Dumb and Dumber, where she turned him down. And he said, "So you're telling me there's
Telling
an
me this is
opportunity?"
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? And
yeah.
I don't, I think if I'm not saying I never want people that our listeners to ever think that this stuff comes easy, because it is the exact opposite. None of the, I'm evolving every day through each challenge, through each change, through each request, through each speed bump in the road. I'm recalibrating, recalculating, and just trying to figure out how to get where I need to go. Where I mean, I've really come back in touch with my dreams, even at 60 plus. I got some dreams that are probably young man's dreams, but they're my dreams. And I'm past the point of feeling stupid and inadequate for having them. I'm just like, screw it. We're gonna go for it. You know what I mean? If it's, I believe it's meant to happen for me. I've really started harden my resolve on there's a few things that I want in my life right now, almost to the point of being stubborn about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, if I didn't put my all into it before, and now I'm recognizing that these two or three things are just uber important to me, that I gotta put my all in. Win, lose, or draw. Now I've been saying that a lot lately. Win, lose, or draw. I'm going for it. I'm just going for it. Because at the end of the day, I gotta look me in the mirror. I gotta look me in the mirror. I can't, you're not looking at me in the mirror. You're not looking at me in the mirror. I gotta look me in the mirror. And I need to feel good about myself, even in defeat, if there is such a thing, because I don't think we ultimately get defeated. I'm not saying I'm defeated. I'm not saying I'm going to get defeated. But what I'm saying to you is, what do you want? What do you want? Be honest about what you want. It doesn't matter if maybe it's really on the borderline of possible an inability to achieve. It only takes a nanosecond to turn it around. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the bless as you started this conversation now, Sean. The blessings. The
Mm-hmm.
blessings are coming at a drop of a hat. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? And I'm one of the guys right now. I've been so reconditioning my brain, and Brian, you know this firsthand because you're seeing it in action. Um, I'm like, why not me? I'm back to that. Why not me?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I have it? Why
Mm-hmm.
can't I have it? Give me a good reason why I cannot have it. I didn't ask to be a gazillionaire. I mean, yes, I would love to be a gazillionaire, but I didn't ask for that. That's not on the list of, I want to be a gazillionaire. That's just a little impractical for me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to live a good life. I want to be happy. I want to be loved. I want to love. Those are the things that are important to me. I want to affect change in a positive manner across the spectrum that I operate from. Those are the things those are, as I told my friend last night, these are my whys. There was a time in my life I did not know what my whys were, had no clue. Brian, thank you for helping me get on the road to discovering what my whys are. I appreciate you for that.
Help me help you, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
100%, brother.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sean, your piece, and I know you got some things to talk about, fears, because we've had conversations about this
Oh
in the
yeah.
past.
Oh yes.
Uh, so let's talk about the root of where that's coming from.
So, in my opinion, everyone, most people are familiar with the false evidence appearing real um, acronym of fear. I'm a very, I've learned I'm a good deal of an empath, over the last year or two, which was a great big aha moment. And it's been really life changing for me. When we're talking about the fear of change, we have to stop and understand what we're talking about is the emotion of the change. Chris said the feeling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know so when we're talking about the emotion around that change, we're also talking about the energy around that change, and what if you stop and slow things down, you'd realize that a lot of it is just energy that we have prepositioned for change. We barely got the words out of your mouth. You barely read the email or the text message, and you've already slammed your life full of negativity because you already had it on standby. That I wish somebody would type of energy, and we have that on standby for things that happen in our lives because we're programmed to protect ourselves. it initially it's a protective of layer there, to protect this sacred instrument that we have from things that are gonna harm us. But we have to stop and understand that no, that's just energy and that's emotion around that. But it's on us how we distribute it. So if we would just take a step back and reevaluate, and you would realize that it's a false assumption. We assume that everything is gonna go to hell because I didn't plan it. You planned it. Someone outside of me planned it. So there's no way it could be right. There's no way it could be good for me because I wasn't involved in the intimate details of it, and because I didn't have ownership of it. Therefore, there is no way it can be good for me. But I'm here to tell you, like Chris alluded to at the end of his statement, there's a saying: the earth is crammed full of heaven. But it's only crammed full of heaven if you allow it, because it can also be crammed full of hell, because that's what most people allow into their lives. Is a hellacious outcome because they're so on guard against things that they think are going to be ill towards them. But most things in life, most change in life, are for the better. If you look back, the beauty of your life is that you can look back. It's all retrospective. You live life forward, but you relive life, in reverse. So you see it in the rearview mirror. So knowing that, I can look back on every single detail of my life and say, man, I I thought hanging off that cliff was going to kill me. Hanging off that cliff kept me from going further this direction. But I was too close to the situation to see it. I know it now, but that's what retrospection is, and that's what they say. Hindsight is 2020. It's taken out of context a lot of times, but if you understand that and just say, "Hey, pause. Once we get through this, I'll know what the purpose was. So let me embrace that change. Put the fear aside. You can keep your red flags up and keep your defense up as much as you need to, but go through it, walk through it boldly. Why not me, Chris? Why not me? Why not? Why shouldn't I take on this change? Let me find the opportunity in it, because it's much easier to dig through it than let the shit just fall on you. Sorry, that's an old military term. Okay, dig through, or you can just get covered in it. Right? You can be more precise with your life if you just plotted your course right through it and allowed yourself to be a part of it and not be a innocent bystander or a shield bearer in your life's drama.
100%. So I think that's perfect that you shared it in that particular way. And the thing that I want to take that emotion, that feeling, how we feel in those moments, that's really in our gut. And a lot of times driven by the preconceptions, as you said, Sean, that are in our minds. But then that takes us to the next place that I want to get into. And that's this victimhood, victim mentality, as if it's been done to us, because it, as Chris talked about earlier, it's not what you wanted, or it's not what you expected, or that team you wanted didn't win the big game, right? The world is cruel. It's just dumping on me, right? So we take this victim's mentality, but the key there is how we then respond from that place. And that's my greatest concern, and that I see and that I observe, is the response sometimes is there's such venom and such anger and sometimes such division, because if you're angry or upset because this thing happened, your team did whatever it might be, and then someone over here is cheering because their team did win. Oh God, you want to run over them with the car. You know what I mean? These are the where our minds go to. And that you're, in my opinion, you are wasting good, productive energy that can be directed, refocused, and repurposed to the greater good for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what good is taking that energy and that angst toward the other individual, because something that, again, they also did not control, right? They don't control whether the Cowboys win or lose. They don't, fan or not, right? But yet you're going to take your time, your energy, your focus, and have all of this just vile thoughts and different things that you have because they have this stance or this position, or they're celebrating whatever it might be. So how do we get past that? What can we do to start to mentally help to change our mindset from what we focus on, what we open ourselves up to, versus closing ourselves off from?
I think a lot of it is rooted in the discipline of conditioning your mind to always be looking for positive outcomes, even in a negative sea. So some things happen, and I shared just a nano nugget with you on the professional front. There are some changes coming, and my first thought was, "Oh my god!" I mean, when initially, this initial act hit, I was like, I immediately went into a mild panic because I was like, um, the person this has happened to provides a lot for support on my end, and my initial thought was, what are we going to do? Because this person's probably going to end up being removed from the process at some point. We don't know when that's going to happen, if that's going to happen, but my gut says it's going to happen. And I immediately went to, if this happens, how do we replace this person? And I went at it from a totally negative perspective. And it was more because I do care about the person, but it was more from it's going to negatively affect me. Yeah, that was my first thought. And I didn't even realize that initially, that's what the anxiety that was all of a sudden rushed to my brain was. And then as I start to process it over the last few days, I came to the conclusion that this is an opportunity. I want to get better. I want to be a more valuable asset. And there are some things that through the transition of this week, I uncovered that I want to do, and I want to add value to my position and what I'm doing. I identified a few things that I want to learn. In the same sense, it's also spreads over to my educational side, that there are changes on that side that are coming catalysts out of that. Both it's going to affect both situations. And then immediately again, I was like, okay, so how do we deal with, how do we fill that void? I know how we fill that void. I've already started the process of grooming some new people anyway, not even knowing about this situation coming in. I'd already been doing some of the legwork already based on my goal. I told you my goal about being assistant director, right? Which you're like, whoa, where'd that come from? You know what I mean? And it was, I was like, okay, this is what assistant directors do. They solve problems. That's what you do. Okay. So immediately, once I dusted myself off, I went into proactiveness. I really leaned into it because it's going to happen, bro. You know what I mean? As much as I want this to not, there's a part of me that does not want this to happen. The reality of it is cause and effect. You caused it, and this is about to be what the effect is. So we can either get on board. I can be the guy that the people that brought me in believe I am. Step up, make it happen. There's a certain sense of pride and accomplishment that comes along with problem solving. Us problem solving people, as much as some days I hate problem solving because that requires me to dig in deep and really start to examine and rethink things. The other part of the growth Christopher says, yeah, I'm on this. You know what I mean? I get a chance to show what my metal's about. You know what I mean? And it's not that I'm looking for a big attaboy or any kind of stuff like that. A simple nod of acknowledgement works for me. As long as we know you're on it. We appreciate you making the effort.
Yep.
There's my reward. And everything else will take care of itself moving forward.
So, Chris, let me ask a follow-up question. Obviously, you worked your way through that. What would you describe that mindset as? What kind of mindset did you move yourself to? What would you describe it as?
Well, it started out as anxiety and mild panic. Then it went to, damn it, I got to do more work. And then I looked at it I started getting more practical about it. So it's a transitional process. You go from hair on fire to putting your hair out to getting your makeup back on and getting things right. And then you go to this, then you go to putting your, for lack of a better expression, then I go to put my cape on. They don't expect me to be Superman. but they do expect me to be a capable professional. That they brought the reason they brought me in because they know I'm capable and I'm a professional, and I'm always going to act and comport myself in that manner. Frick all the gossip, all the conjecture, all the stuff like that. And that was the other part, which I'm actually pretty damn good at. Playing. You told me that many years ago. I'm not going to let my mouth get me in trouble. So I have an ability to be able to take everything in, process and calculate, and spit out a message that invokes confidence in the people that you have around you. And in a lot of cases, you're going to bring them up. You know what I mean? And that's kind of my role. I kind of feel like that's one of my roles, is to always keep the bar up. You know, even though sometimes the bar is really freaking heavy, keeping the bar up, keeping that good, that good face through potentially through a storm. I think that's just conditioning. And I think that's just, I think that's what I've seen. I was talking to a friend of mine about that last night, about you have to commit in most situations in your life, personal, professional, or otherwise. You have to have an ability to commit to that process. And if you don't commit to that process, you are not going to reap the benefits of it at all whatsoever. You're giving yourself zero chance.
Man, Chris, I was waiting for you to get there. You came through at the end there with that commitment piece. So you are right on the money. And I'm gonna tell you, it's huge. So if you see the tea that I'm drinking here, this is my commitment to this 14-day detox that I'm on.
Right on.
And every day that it's got to 9 p.m., 10 o'clock, and I haven't boiled my tea and got it ready for the next day, I'm like, I can just wait till tomorrow. But I know if I do that, I'm gonna miss a day. So commitment is definitely the key. But I'm gonna take it back a little bit to the original question about the victimhood mentality and that portion, because the biggest part there is it's all ego. That victimhood is simply ego, saying that me, woe is me, who's so cut apart from the rest of the world around me. I'm in my little cave playing my little violin, right? That's all ego. And if you stop and listen in your mind, you'll hear the ego turning on. If you hear anything negative in your mind, that's always just the ego. If it's positive, oh yeah, that's the right way. If it sounds supportive, it's that way. But if it is anything that is talking about someone else or anything that's woe is me, that is not you. That's ego leading you astray. And so we have to be able to delineate that for ourselves. But we have to take time and take ownership of our own minds. Kobe Jelly Bean Bryant, one of my favorite athletes of all time, rest in peace, talked about, how he missed the shot at the end of a game, and he was just brokenhearted about it. Man, I let the team down. I let my family down. I let the world down. And it bothered him for a bit. And if you read his book, he says what he learned to do was understand, hold on, it's not about me. It's not about me. And you take that portion out of the situation, take it out of the process. This is not about you. This election, everyone in America, I'm sorry, it's not about you. It never was. The change in your job was not about you. So if you take your ego out of it, take the you out of it, then things become a lot clearer, and you realize it as just a process of change. It's a natural flowing of life. So you take yourself out of it, and then you can get to where we're talking about mindset. And I'm of the stance now, through the evolutions that I've been through, is that mindset is one of the easiest things. It's the easiest because mindset is just that. It's you setting your mind. It's in the word mindset. You set your mind, just like you set the radio, just like you set your alarm. You pick your mind up, put it here, from negative to positive. You literally do that. You have to shift it, pick it up, move it. This is now my mindset. The problem is in that process, you run into a secondary wall of fear, right? You run into the secondary fear of the mindset change. So you went from the fear of the change, and now, I've got to. So now you run into the second and third, and then the other tertiary rings of fear. It's like an onion. There's just layers of fear around everything. But if you take yourself out the middle of it, you can set your mind there and have peace in that. But that fear, that secondary fear, is all based in self-esteem and self-trust. You don't esteem yourself high enough that this is going to work out for me. I'm like Chris, whatever it is, man, this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened in my life. Why? Because I will it to be so. Because this is my life. Because my mindset says everything that happens for me works out for my highest good. Not just, it could work out. No, it will and must work out for my highest good because that's the dial that I've set my mind to. And so, therefore, it comes back in that fashion. But that self esteem and self trust is an issue. So, as Chris said, you have to then trust the process. That's where the commitment comes in. You can be committed to it because you trust the process. It's going to work out because my mindset says it's going to be so. You put the ego aside because the ego is going to be knocking at your door. No, that's not going to work. Remember what happened in 1998? What happened in 2002? What happened in 2008? And it'll start giving you all kinds of feedback of the things that didn't work out. But then you can say, I'm alive today and on purpose today, which is evidence that it did in fact work out. It didn't work out in the way that you thought it was going to, Mr. Ego, but I'm here right now as a shining example that it did indeed work out. So I can push that to the side really quickly. And when those things pop up, and they do frequently throughout the day, I say, as Reverend Ike says, no, I'm sorry, I'm about my Father's business, which is the business of me. And you can put that aside, and I stay on task and remain committed to those things that I know are going to work out because I've set my mind to it, and then that reality will come forth for me.
100% agree with you on that. So, Sean, I want to ask a follow-on question because a part of that onion, and as you said, you run into these new walls, and I think all of us in some way deal with it, especially when ego is involved, and that is judgment. So, how do we better deal with that judgment piece? Because a lot of the times, that's where we say, I need to, as you said, shift my mind, move my mindset to here. But then when I do that, I'm going to be judged because now I'm changing. I'm going to appear differently to the world, the people around me, the people I love, people that are close to me. So now the question is, that's going to be some judgment that's going to come with that. So maybe I shouldn't do it, or I don't. And as you talked about a few minutes ago, I don't stay as committed, or I am not as committed to that shift and set as I should be because of the judgment. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the issue is we don't realize that this is for the gamers out there, this is a single player game. Yes, there's other people around you. There's a Chris, there's a Brian, but each of us are playing a single player, single RPG, these role playing game that we're in. Okay, there's only one person playing the game. So they're just onlookers. They're just background characters. We give them too much power. That feeling of judgment is not them judging us. We're giving them the power of judgment. We're putting the gavel in their hand and say, I want you to watch me, and I want you to grade me on what I do, because we learn that as children. We learn that our parents, our siblings, our teachers, our pastors, our deacons, all of them are there to give us an A, give us a B, D, C, F. And we learn that that's how life works. But I'm here to tell you that that is not how life works. You are the only person that grades you. You're the only person that judges you. So take that power back and give it to yourself. That's why they say real G's move in silence. You don't share what's going on with you. You just let people see the fruit. You know a tree by the fruit that it bears. So you have to take that back. I don't let judgment. I don't even think judgmental thoughts. I say, hey, I'm being great. I talk about when I share with my story about how I just did a quick 180 at work, and everyone's like, well, who do you think you are? You must think you're special. And I say, you know what? I do. Thank you for asking. I think really highly of you too. So enjoy your day, and it's off-putting when you take the power back from people, because they also think that their job is to judge the people around them. And that's not the case. Their only job, just like my job, is to keep their eyes on their prize. But so many of us are have our eyes on everyone else that we can't see our own path. And that's why so many people are in relationships that they don't want to be in, marriages they don't want to be in, jobs they don't want to work at, careers that are not serving them, and they're dying of stress and chronic disease because they're too busy looking outward at things and judging things when if they simply applied that energy to themselves, they would shoot off like a rocket to the moon. As soon as they take the lid off their own jar, those fleas are out of the jar, right? So we have to take back that judgmental energy that we're assigning to the people around us. Neville Goddard says you have to do it alone. Those affirmations that you're telling yourself in the mirror every day, those are for you. You don't tell your neighbor, your wife, your anybody. Well, in the morning, in order to get my day going, I tell myself A, B, C, and D. I thank my spleen. I thank my liver. I thank my bed. I thank my refrigerator. Blah blah blah. Because they're going to look at you crazy. So you don't share those things because this is how what it takes for you to get out. Kobe Bryant says, he thinks he's Decimus Maximus Meridius with the chalk with the dirt in his hands before the gladiator games, right? When he starts a game, he turns into a whole different person. Now, for that random person, they're like, "What is he doing?" That's his mindset. That's his thing. I don't do that because I don't go into my life as a gladiator. I go into my life with a different way, but that works for him. And we don't
Yeah.
judge him for it because it equals success for him. So whatever equals success for you, you do it unashamedly, but you keep it to your dang own self because someone's going to, as soon as it starts chinking at your armor, and our self confidence and our energy is very, very fluid. It only takes a whisper. It only takes a whisper to get us off of our game and get us out of alignment. So
Yep.
we've got to take back our energy. Judging is only if you allow yourself to be judged. Get yourself out the courtroom.
Chris, anything you want to add on top of that, talking about judgment and how that's either played into some of your experiences or how you deal with it today?
I think I almost talk about this somewhat daily at some point. We talk about the idea that humanity is very steeped in judgment. We're judgy. That's my word, judgy. So we immediately look at every situation, and and I've seen it so much lately, especially in this election cycle, how people are making these uninformed calls based on something that someone told them or someone shared with them or someone they read something somewhere or some video blurb or something like that, and we we we're so attached to the instantaneousness of it all, um, that people are like, yeah, that person's not good enough, yeah, he's not this, and yeah, he's not that. Well, what are they? How about we lead in with what they are, what they actually are, based on the information that you have, the true information that you've had. How about you do your research? I think the biggest thing that really pisses me off in people today is how they run around spouting these quote unquote facts, but then you ask them, well, where'd you come up with that? Where's did you actually, did you actually do some research? Well, no, I heard so and so. I'm like, so that's how you live your life?
Hmm.
You live your life with the fact because Joe Blow here on the side and at the smoking pit or out in the back of the parking lot told you some shit, or at the bar or whatever. Now all of a sudden you're just going to run with it, and you're not going to develop your own conclusions. You know, um, the assumptions we make about people and situations, we immediately assume the worst. You know what I mean? Even the situation I'm dealing with this person, it's a bad situation, but I am doing my damnedest not. There are certain facts I know that I can make a call, but there are certain facts I do not know that are beyond me that I need to just stay out of. And that's the trick. And I think if more people worked from that mindset and perspective, we'd have a whole lot cleaner world, and it would be moving a lot more positively in the direction that most people want it to go. But the fact of the matter is, we love the chaos, we love the negativity, we love the ability to knock someone down, and more importantly, the ability to keep them down. People revel in that, and I can't for the life of me understand how people really. And let me back up a second. I used to be that guy. I didn't know it, but I really, I jumped on the train. I was, hey, you got an extra seat on the train? I want on, you know? I mean, and it's just, at the end of the day, if you're being honest about it, it's a horrible way to go. So it's the worst. It is such a destructive force. And quite frankly, I'm learning not to play in that arena. I'm learning when those conversations shift like that to some, and it's usually, and I've gotten to the point where I'm mastering the quietness of it all. So I just quietly back out of it, especially when I come on to the point where you guys are trying to suck me in. In my head, I'm like, they're trying to suck me in. These people, these are miserable people, and they want me to be miserable right along with it because they do say misery loves company. And I'm like, no, I'm here for good. I realize that good doesn't always prevail, but damn it, I'm going to give it the old college try. I'm going to, maybe it's putting some perspective on it for people. Sometimes you have to really do that with people. You have to take, and that's a risk. Let's as a go. That is a straight up risk when you have to disagree or your point counterpoints someone's judgment. Yeah, you might be right, but that's not the point. Point of the matter is, you're either here for good or you're here or you're not. In the freaking story. One of my mantras is, I try to leave it better than I found it.
Yeah.
That's a conscious decision.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for that. And I want to jump in here because both of you guys stepped on something there that relates to me directly in a good way. And good because I think it'll be good for audience to hear it from my perspective and how it has manifested itself, I guess, in my life. And just like anything, they're going to be, I'm not going to use the term negative, but there are going to be challenges and opportunities that come as well as the good that's in it. The thing is the awareness that needs to go around it. So I did this process where I had to essentially try to encapsulate myself, me, in 2 words. And I boiled it down to these 2 words. And as stoic, nonconformist, that is who I am at my core. That's the clock, that's the engine that runs me. And I've had to accept that. So I like Sean was saying, compartmentalize, think about self. That's the stoicism. That's to be still and really look at things. The nonconformist piece, yeah, that's some rebelliousness there. There is, if everybody's going on train A, well, I'm going to get on train B. Why? Because everybody's on train A. Not that even train B is the right train for me, but I operate from that. So I have to catch myself at times and pull myself back and say, okay, no, you're being too rebellious just for the sake of being rebellious. But I bring that up to go to what Chris was just talking about doing your own research. I automatically do that because if the message out there is just this deluge of negativity, this person's that way, or this is what's happening in the election, I'm going to go, oh, wait a minute. That's all I'm hearing is X. I'm going to go do my own research to see, is it valid? Is it not valid? Because I'm going to automatically non-conform with the wherever things are going. So knowing that about myself, it does give me this, I guess, sense of peace to allow me to sit still, do my own research, evaluate, and then move based on that piece of it, because that's how I operate. But what I want to go to next with this is kind of the last thing I want to touch on, and Chris, thank you for the segue into this, is when we do get into these situations of judgment and people saying this, saying that, whatever else, and then we respond, why is it that most times look at it having to be a win-lose scenario? Why do we approach things in that way in our responses most times? I got to figure out how to make me win and make them lose.
Well, I think that's another one of the horrible traits of humanism is this belief that we always have to be right. That is just like taking off like wildfire today. That position of, and you've seen that a lot in this election cycle. It's one way and it's not the other, and you're wrong, and I'm right, and a lot of times it's not steeped in any facts. It's your ego. Sean said this a gazillion times in the conversation. The ego at play, and I just think people are so ego driven. I thought of something from the last segment was I call it the disease of comparison, where we immediately put ourselves up against, and a lot of times it's our peers. It's the people that are in our universe. We put ourselves up against them in a comparison, that disease of comparison where how many toys do you got versus how many toys do I got, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, it took me a long time to get away from that. I'll be honest with you. It took me a long time. And just and every once in a while it pops back up on me, but I've conditioned myself so well to knock it back down. Like this is not what this is about. You are your own entity. You are your own being. You're your own organism. How you go is how you go. You have the same opportunities and chances as most of your other peers do. I'm not Brian Murray. I'm not Sean Skinner. We are all equally successful in our own rights, our own dreams, our own desires.
Yep, agreed. Sean, what about you? Tagging on where Chris was and some of the things he just shared, and really talking about this win-lose mindset or mentality. What do we need to do to start to shift that? Because it's causing so much division in the country. It's causing divisions in our communities, within our culture, everything. And
Yeah.
we've got to figure out how to stem the tide and start to shift it in a different direction.
Yeah. It's getting to the internals. You talk about stoicism and getting in and finding yourself and finding your stillness. The hard part is that as human beings we're hardwired to judge. We're hardwired to judge, to inspect our environment. That's what our consciousness is doing around us. It's just do, door, window, chair, table. It's judging things because it's necessary for that, because it's there to protect us. It's for our survival. We're looking around. Initially, we're there to know if the person that's standing across from me is a friend or a foe, if they're going to cause me harm or cause me good. The problem is, we've created a career out of it. We've made that portion, that any itty bitty portion of our life, to take up our whole life. I told you guys about that. I was reading the Celestine Prophecy, and early on in that book, it talks about energy, and human beings have this tendency to capture each other's energy. That's that win or lose that we're trying to do. We're trying to win the argument, not to get points on the board, but we're trying to capture the energy. Because if you win an argument, what happens? You feel, yeah, I got my point across. The person that didn't get it is somewhat diminished because you have essentially captured part of their energy. The issue is when you're not whole in yourself and you need someone else's energy to bolster your energy. That is why we have so much conflict between person to person and nation to nation. We're trying to capture that energy because we don't have it in ourselves. So the best way for us as a person, as a community, as a nation, worldwide, to get out of that is to fulfill ourselves, fulfill our own essence, fulfill our own energy. And that's what purpose does for you. If you are purpose driven, there is no way you have space to grab everyone else's energy. Why? Because you're too busy in abundance and your energy is actually pouring out from you. You become a fountain of energy, a fountain of youth. I get younger and younger every day, let me tell you. You become a fountain of energy and a fountain of love, and you're giving that when you're on purpose. When you're not on purpose, you're in lack and in a negative space, and you're trying to get it from someone else. So you're putting people down. You're trying to get your opinion across. You're electing who you want for their nastiness and their negativity because you feel that, hey, I have to do. If you look at what went on with this election cycle in white nationalism, the main point was 71% of white men in America voted for one person because they wanted to prevent and slow the dispossession of this country, to slow it. It can't be stopped. It can be slowed. I'm gonna just call a spade a spade. And I talked with my sister last night, who was like Chris, very down, very blue about the whole situation. And I said, when you look at it in that space, take it up. Let's go into a macro level here. Let's go into macro. If this is what is being done, is just a last gasp of, hey, I want to protect the white majority. Well, in 20 years, it won't be. There will be none of that. And I plan to be alive in 20 years. Just like there were men and women that waited 100 years to see Barack Obama get elected. We're going to be alive to see what this next iteration of life in America is. But that energy is what that was all about. It was a place of lack. It was the majority that is slowly, quickly becoming the minority, and they're feeling that loss of energy, and so they're grasping. They're rewriting history books. They're whatever it takes. It's futile, of course, but if we could simply stand back and say, "Hey, I'm solid, 100% in who I am." When I have a conversation, I don't have to win an argument. I can concede any point and say, "Oh, you make a good point. It was a pleasure talking with you," and then you've given them the energy that they request. Because when you're in purpose and full of yourself, you have it to give. So find your why, find your purpose, and then you're in line with your energy. And when you're in line with your energy, that is ever flowing. You never run out. So you can say, "Hey, that's great. Yes, it could be the Cowboys' year. Well, I hope to find out at the end of the season as you do. It's great. I don't have to go back and forth and say no. The Chargers are. I mean, the Cowboys are horrible, and Jerry needs to be fired, and all this and that. I can just say, "Oh, that's great. That's a great perspective." Because I'm in alignment, and I don't allow myself to get into a negative banter because I don't have a negative footing to stand off of. I'm only in a positive space, and if you put those sides of a magnet together, they automatically uh, dispel each other. So I was like, oh, like Chris was saying, I don't even engage in those things because I don't have the place within me to engage from. If it's not positive, I just bow out and say, "Oh, well, it looks like you have an argument of some sort or an exchange, but I'm not exchanging. I can give you, but I can't take from you, and you cannot take from me." So, if we got to that space, we'll be much better off with our ability to accept change, um, embrace change, and help others chart their path as a change agent. And that's my best advice.
We just talked about the win lose scenario. And, we've talked about mindset and shifting your mindset and getting it to be in a better place. We've talked about getting away from judging and getting the feelings out of it, from a fear standpoint. The last place I want to stop with this is really talking about the way forward. When change happens, when you are feeling like the world is against me and this has changed and blah, 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 start to look at what's the win-win in this,
Mm-hmm.
right? That if you can come at it immediately going, what's the win-win in this? How can I win? How can the situation itself end up being better because of? Because if you take that focus, what I call the pieces, the steps, the mechanisms, they'll sort themselves out. What you have to do is figure out what the objective or goal is. That what does the win-win look like? Not how to necessarily get there initially. Yeah, you do have to. Those steps do need to happen. But if you can just go, okay, wait, this is the shift that's happening. This is the change that's happening. Now that means the landscape is going to look like X, Y, or Z. What's the benefit of that? How can I benefit from that? How can my company, how can whatever the situation is now, how can we now benefit from X? And then I'll take, as you talked about, Sean, your energy, your effort. Now focus it on that piece of the pie versus, well, it's me and I got to conquer this and they got to lose and I got to win. So win-win. Chris, I'm coming to you first. What have you started to do when you're assessing a situation to say, you know what, this is my path, my purpose, my plan to try to achieve a win-win solution?
I think the starting point is approach. I think we all have to have a tried and true approach that benefits, that can actually forward with them. My approach is, yeah, I mean, singularly, I know what I want. Does what I want singularly line up with what's good for the greater good? I think we've become, and I'll be, let me, before I keep moving, I by definition used to be one of the most selfish people you would ever meet. It was always about me when I was coming up, but I'm an only child. I mean, what do you expect? I never had to fight with my brothers and sisters for something. I mean, I got half brothers and sisters, but I never had to fight with them for anything. So it was always conditioned in my mind. It was about me. And my folks didn't help me with this. Let's be honest. I love them to death, but they could have done a hell of a lot better job with this. But I have transitioned through different experiences over the course of my life on the planet to kind of started to legislate that. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't have my selfish moments. But the reality is I always think about what I want. How does that affect the overall universe? We talk, we talk about the universe all the time. And I just think it is just something I've grown into, understanding that, we talk, mentioned earlier, we're talking about accepting change versus embracing change and things like that. And I think if you come into it with the mindset that change is definitely that constant that you can't get away from, how, that you lean into it. And like I said, every time I think we're all wired the somewhat same way, as where we sit and we think about all the ripples in the pond, how that affects not only us, but those around us, the people, the win-win, that because we went to the seminar, the always betting black, and things of that nature. But I really think it's really the intention of it all, being intentional with, well, first and foremost, having the ability to sit back and look at each situation. Now, obviously, each situation is different, but I think the desired outcomes in each individual situation are still the same desired outcomes. We don't want something bad to happen. We really want something good to happen. So how do we get there? How do we at least make an effort to get there? Because we all know it doesn't always work out as you've intended. Can you be okay with that? Can you make peace with this particular situation didn't come out 100% the way? Maybe there were some desired outcomes within there, but they weren't all the outcomes that you desire. Can you be okay and keep moving and keep progressing and keep growing and keep using these experiences that you've had to better the next time out, to better the next time? I talk about reps. We're sports people, so we talk. It's in basketball, it's shots. In golf, it's cuts. We call it cuts on the ball. And just that idea, because a lot of this is mental. It's not the physical aspect of it. It's the mental idea of it, the mental practice in your head when these things hit you out of nowhere. Like I said, I had to adjust this week. It was, and at the beginning, I fought it. I mean, I really, literally, I fought it and how that manifested itself is A, I was angry, and then B, I was hurt. And then I felt a lot of sorrow. That sorrow wasn't for me. That sorrow was for the people that I feel that get marginalized in our country, the people that don't have a voice, the people that are scared to open their mouth. Those are the people that I'm out here fighting for and I'm out here working for. I work with underprivileged, quote unquote, underprivileged kids from an environment that is not used to the environment that we're used to, not used to being within it, not even being used to being in the neighborhood of that environment. So that's one of those teachable moments that I get up for every day. That's my I'm championing for those people that don't know about it or inexperienced about it and just have not had the exposure of it all. That's part of my why. So, but that's, like I said, that's a maturation thing. That's something that you have to constantly say, yeah, I wasn't this person yesterday, but I can be this person today and tomorrow.
I think the positive piece of what I heard there, Chris, to summarize it, is when you said that's part of your why, and figuring out truly what your purpose and what your why is, that will most times lead you to look at things to do a win-win scenario, because you have a clear vision and a path and a direction that you're moving. and that makes a huge difference. Sean, what about you? What would you like to pick up with that, talking about just getting yourself to focus more and be more open to driving toward a win-win versus a win-lose?
I'm going to literally pick up right there where he left off at maturation. Maturation is the number one thing we can do to fix dang on near everything that we perceive as wrong in our life is maturation. It's unfortunate that in our country we are stuck intellectually at a third grade level. You know, in the work that I do, whenever I put in anything together, I have to have it reviewed to make sure that it fits a third grade level. Now, which is crazy when how many of us go to college and go to high school? What is that percentage? The majority. But yet, we are dumbed down to third grade, to a third grade reading level. My friend that works at the White House said they had to dumb it down to a second grade level for certain certain people that will remain, obviously, but nameless still, because that's just where we are in this country. Religiously, we're the same way. We are still, singing and preaching, Jesus loves the little children, and Jesus loves me, this I know. We're not allowed to educate and grow into those higher levels of consciousness unless you as an individual decide you want to. The education system is designed to the lowest common denominator, the lowest student. You can go to the AP class if you want to, but we're not pushing people, that we're not funneling our students there. There's no metric that says, well, we had 20 people in AP this year. How can we make it 40 next year? How can we make it 100? Because if we did, we would have a country of geniuses. But no, we want to make sure that we maintain our averages and our levels here. My goal, one thing that I'm working on with some educators here is to do a program where over the summer, the kids know what the requirement for that next grade is, and they have a read ahead to already know what they'll need to know for the next year at the end of the year, not at the beginning of the year. No, what's the end state? If you're in ninth grade, what's the expectation for you to pass to the 11th grade? So that you work on that over the summer, so that you start ahead of the class. It's too easy, and there's enough information out there to do it. But maturation, we have to mature in ourselves and in our consciousness to able to get to those higher levels of consciousness. When I'm talking about a win-win, though, personally, I look at how I can, number one, maintain true to myself. I have to be selfish in this because this is my RPG. This is my Ready Player One game. I have to be true to myself. So in that case, I do have to be a little selfish because my energy is going to tell me if it's right or if it's wrong, and I'm going to feel that emotion. So I stay, how can I be true to myself? Number one. Number two, how can I be true to myself and give of myself from that true state? And then thirdly, how can I use that giving to help that person be the best they can be? That's a true win-win. It's a trifecta. It's not a win-win because you have three parties involved. That's why they always say you got me, myself, and I. There's three players there. What can you do that says, hey, whatever this change is that's going on in my life or what I'm being faced with, how can I remain my rock of Gibraltar right here? Okay, how can I steady here? And whatever the situation is coming, how can I give of myself to it? Okay, because I have this abundance that I have. How can I give from what I have to it? If I have a lot of money, how can I give finances toward it? If I have just, the energy that I have, how can I give my energy to it? How can I give whatever I've been blessed with to it in a way that benefits that person? Because if it benefits that person and I've taken care of those other two, it's going to benefit me as well. And that's the reciprocal nature of the life that we live in. So the key word that I like to use is be authentic. Be authentic. Be authentic to yourself, and you serve people from that place of authenticity. You get that win-win every time, because no matter, it's like Chris says, sometimes you don't get those end states that you were looking for. But at the end of the day, what do they say? Man, I'd like to thank the team for helping out in ABCD category, even if it's just the person that's moving the chairs in the event, because that's all they could do. But you do it from a place of love and a place of authenticity, you win. You're filled from that. The person that you're engaging with, they win because you've been your authentic self. They see it and they feel it. And then whatever you're able to build together, whether you win, lose, or draw, it was an authentic try, that good old college try. You say, hey, we did our best, and look what our best was. And even if it didn't get all the way there, it's a bright, shining example of what you can do with with the pieces that you have, because that's life. Sometimes you don't have all the pieces, you don't have all the answers, you don't have all the inputs, but what you can do is put your best forward, and that's that authenticity.
So I'm going to move to final thoughts, and I'm going to go first because what I want to do is I actually want to kind of go back to the beginning. The title of this is From Fear to Freedom, and that's what we're talking about when we're talking about transcending yourself from being in that fear state, that woe is me state, everything else, to kind of get out of your own way, have that self-awareness, and then have the mindset shift that's needed there so that you are more free, feel less oppressed is a great word when change happens in your life, because change is a constant, as we've talked about. So it's going to happen. So the freedom that can bring for you is just an astronomical place to be, because of the freedom that it'll bring you, less fears, you feel more in control, and you can stay focused more on the purpose and your whys that you have in your life. So how I sum that up for my chair is start to look at putting yourself in a place of what I call being in a opportunity mindset. So evaluating all things, looking at it to say, what is the opportunity here in this change or shift or whatever's going on? And then look for the positivity in those opportunities, look for ways that you can make a difference, look for the things that Sean talked about, to ways to be of service, and to help guide and grow others, which is something all three of us work on consistently in our lives day to day, because that's where you're going to achieve the quote unquote greater good. That's the win-win, as what Sean just talked about. So opportunity mindset, let's make that a focus and try to move ourselves from this block to this block. And I think that'll make all the difference in the world. Chris, what about you? Final thoughts for our audience?
You ready?
I'm sitting down.
All right, cool. So listen, I believe since the beginning of time, human beings have always had an element of change thrust upon towards them on an almost everyday basis. And in a lot of cases, some of that is tied to just straight survival. And it usually comes when the form of some form of challenge or hardship is placed upon us. I, for one, used to be very resistant to embrace the change and would do almost anything to avoid it. What I've truly come to understand is that you will face those challenges, hardships, willingly or unwillingly. I've been working tirelessly over the last few years to improve my ability to meet those challenges head on, knowing that the fact has made my knowing this fact has made my journey towards my dreams a lot less unpleasant, while also providing me with a vehicle to navigate the uncertainty of those changes. Consequently, my life has become filled with more intention, quicker, and more decision-making ease, while providing better outcomes through required changes that are needed as I better the life that I desire. At the end of this, change is a constant. So smart money says that at some point you'll need to develop an ability to embrace it. Otherwise, you're going to wander aimlessly through life with a lot of heartache, anger, disappointment, and just unhappiness. What do you want?
Amen to that. Thank you, Chris. Sean, what about you? Final thoughts for our audience?
Oh man, final thoughts. All right. So, I love being a remnant of the indigenous peoples of this earth. And those people and those communities understood life was change. It's the whole reason why we mastered the stars eons ago. For the only purpose of being able to follow the change and be prepared for that change because we knew it was coming. In 2024, we've come full 180 the other way, where we are braced against change, and we find ourselves bumping against change instead of flowing with it, because we believe life is out to get us. That's a very new and nuanced, some would say European view of life that we don't share. I don't share. We have to stop that. I like where you went with your comment, Brian. I believe we have to stay, I'm going to coin this, consistently conscious. Consistently conscious. And what that means is we're changing, we're evolving. So we have to always be aware of what's going on around us. We think that we're all playing a game of life where you put your point up on the board and say, yep, I won. Now I can sit back and just, no, it's constant. Um, there's a saying, that you move from glory to glory, but you can move from glory to glory if you're constantly and consistently aware of the things you have to do to maintain your alignment and your consciousness. Because if you don't, you'll just simply move from fear to fear. And that's where we are right now as a society. We're just moving from fear to fear, reacting to changes as they come, feeling life beating on us. But if we are in alignment and we saw those changes coming and accepted them, we just see, oh, we're moving from glory to glory, from grace to grace. Oh, good situation to good situation to good situation. Oh, not expected situation, but still good. Good situation, good situation. Now we're moving from glory to glory, and that's what that verse means in the Bible when it says that. But you have to be aware of it, and you're only aware if you are in alignment, on task, on purpose, being divinely purpose-driven individuals. And then you stay in that state of awareness. If your mind slips like we all do, we say, that's not me. That's old programming. Let's pull it back here. Anytime you feel that shift, come back to it. Guard the windows and the avenues to your soul. Don't share what's going on in your life, and you can stay consistent in that space. That's all I have to share, guys. Consistently conscious.
Gentlemen, this has been amazing. Like I said, I wanted to bring this up and have this discussion because the election cycle and just everything else is happening. And we're about to start a new year. So we're getting ready to get into 2025. And I think any message that we can put out to help someone, as Sean just said, become consistently conscious, to get past those fears, to be more focused, to live with intention, to find their whys, live by purpose, all the things that we've talked about in this episode today. If we can impact people's lives in that way and have them start to engage in their own lives in that way, and which will then obviously spread to the community and so on, then that's the success that we have in making a difference in the world. And that's our way of giving back.
We all know that the mission is dangerous.
Yeah.
Not was dangerous, is dangerous. But we have there are a number of us who have collectively decided to take it on. We don't have the luxury to sit back and do nothing, especially with the knowledge base that we come from, with the compassion that we have as people, our collective. It behooves us to even more now band together and come up with a plan, come up with some solutions, and more importantly, be unified across the board as we move and groove into the next thing. Because, like I said, for me, it's the kids behind me. That's part of my it's the kid. They're going to be running the show. I had that conversation last night. So it's becoming increasingly important as each day goes by, what the new mission is. And I think if you are committed to great life for all, win-win, then you're going to embrace it. If you're not, you're going to freaking put your head back in the sand and let whatever be. I don't plan to do that. As long as there's breath in my body, I'm looking for allies and folks that want to roll their sleeves up and get this done and really make a difference in the world that we have. So I hope that makes sense to everybody that's listening, because I feel very strongly and very passionate about it.
Yes. Band of brothers is the way to look at it. And that's who we need to be. Again, let's focus out there, moving from fear to freedom by accepting change, shifting your mindset, and driving yourself forward to whatever your goals, passions, and purposes are in life. That's what it's all about. As I always say, take care and definitely take care of each other. We'll see you soon. Bye now.